Hey guys, I'm Mason, and this is Wrestling in the Dark, the only professional wrestling podcast brought to you by a blind wrestling fan. Today is my Monday Mixup episode. It's the more free-form podcast where I go through a couple of the issues from the last week in wrestling that interested me, and maybe answer some questions sent in by you, the listeners. Today I'm going to be talking about, will Brock Lesnar cash in his Money in the Bank contract tonight on Monday Night Raw? NXT UK's next takeover was announced this weekend, and I'm going to share my thoughts on that. And also I'm going to talk about the most talked about thing in wrestling in the last week, the Jon Moxley Talk is Jericho interview. If you want to find out any of my thoughts on those topics, stick around as I go through my Monday Mix-Up episode. Before I get to the wrestling, I've got a little thing I want to get out of the way, and I want to wish a happy birthday to my good friend, the pizza expert, Armour Arcana. And just for you, because I know how much you love it, I'm going to sing you a little song. RJ Meltzer, you suck. RJ Meltzer, you suck. RJ Meltzer, you suck. Happy birthday to Armour. It was announced over the weekend by Paul Heyman on Twitter that Brock Lesnar would be cashing in his Money in the Bank contract tonight on Monday Night Raw. Now there's a few ways they could go with this, and I'm fairly interested in unpacking it. So, the first and most obvious one is Brock doesn't show up. Clear heel tactic is something that's happened before. They've advertised Lesnar being on a show and he hasn't turned up before. It wouldn't be anything new. I wouldn't really put it past them to do it either, to advertise that it's going to happen just to pop ratings and get people to tune in to see it happen. I know that people might say that Brock Lesnar doesn't actually pop ratings or shift any numbers, but at the end of the day, a Money in the Bank cash-in probably will. So there's that possibility. Then there's the possibility that he might actually cash in. If he does, going against Seth or Kofi. This is an interesting one, because the obvious answer is Seth, because he's feuding right now. They can have a match at whatever the pay-per-view is, Super Showdown in Saudi Arabia, and it's just the obvious way to go because Seth took the championship off Brock. However, going for Kofi would be a far more interesting one. It'd be a bit of a swerve, and Sean Ross Sapp from Fightful put the idea in my head not long after Money in the Bank that Lesnar would go after Kofi as a swerve and a bit of a heel move to put an end to Kofi's reign. Then Roman would end up going after Seth, and we would end up getting Roman as the Universal Champion, and then we'd get Roman Brock at WrestleMania as champion versus champion, which obviously would probably end up seeing Roman pick up 2 belts. Double duty Roman, the double duty big dog. So yeah, I don't know why, but that one that one really seems like something that they do to me, and I really think that it'd be sort of interesting, to be honest. If he cashes in and he cashes in on Seth, it seems just really obvious and really just, it's just a bleh sort of decision, and I'm not really that interested. If he beats Seth for that championship, what happens to the Super Showdown match? Not that it matters, because I won't be watching that, but if that were to happen, are they going to do Lesnar versus Corbin? Because that doesn't seem like a match that I particularly want to see, or anyone would really want to see. It's just a strange set of situations. Would Corbin just get taken out of that match? Would it be a triple threat? So it'd be a little bit of it'd be boring, and it'd also be sort of silly. Whereas then the Kofi one would actually be interesting. Having Kofi have to go up against Lesnar would probably make him look pretty good, even in defeat. If Kofi can get a good showing in and make himself look strong, even if Lesnar beats him, then he still gets a little bit of a rub from that, and then at least it's not just Seth and Brock some more, and I could just really see it happening. I could see with the Fox deal coming up that they'd want Brock as the champion, and then maybe if you've got Seth or Roman as the Universal Champion and Brock as the WWE Champion, it just sort of makes sense to me. Not that I'd want it, but it makes sense to me why they do it. You know, Fox having wanting Lesnar there as that big name attraction. They want that more sports-like feel, and Brock sadly brings that legitimacy to it. So it's going to be fairly interesting to see what actually happens, but which one will happen? It's a impromptu fantasy versus reality, I guess. So the fantasy one would be going up against Kofi, and yeah, he'd probably end up winning. But goddamn, imagine if Kofi actually successfully defended the WWE Championship against Brock Lesnar in a cash-in. That would be huge. That would make him a huge star. So yeah, fantasy booking, I guess that's what we'd do. But in reality, what will happen? Apparently Dave Meltzer, the man that I don't usually I don't really take things from him, but he says apparently that he thinks it's a guaranteed win for Brock going against Seth. So it's either going to be that or he doesn't show up. He won't go for Kofi. I will say that I think it's quite close, but I'm going to go with that he will show up and he'll cash in on Seth, because that's the most uncreative answer, I guess. Yeah, so let me know what you think. Will Lesnar cash in tonight? Who will he cash in on? And how would you like to see it happen? Next up, it's time to talk about NXT TakeOver UK, or NXT UK TakeOver Cardiff. It's been a long time since Blackpool now, really, and it feels like it's been a hell of a long time. I'm really surprised that they haven't done one between now and what will be Cardiff, as well as it being really, really strange and very intriguing that they're going up against AEW with All Out and NJPW with the pay-per-view name that escapes me, but those three shows all being on the same day is really, really intriguing. It's going to be interesting to see how the fan base divides itself with that. It's going to be interesting seeing it in Cardiff. Sean Ross Sapp on Fightful mentioned that he thought that it'd probably be because there'll be a Tegan Nox return. I'm looking forward to seeing Tegan Nox. If anyone doesn't know, she was formerly known as not Tegan Nox, that's what she's known as now. It was Nixon Newell. I actually have been in the same building as Nixon Newell. She was there the first ever pro wrestling show that I ever went to, which was a little company called Pro Wrestling For You, and it was a tiny show, and I don't think there was any other big names there, but Nixon Newell was there, and she knew one of my friends, and so there was like 5 or 6 lads, and we were all just really rowdy, giving her a fight, Nixon, fight, and she pointed at us, and it was a great little moment. So I definitely am looking forward to seeing her, because I feel like I've got that little bit of a connection with her, and it's going to be really fun to see her come back. And if they do have a comeback at Cardiff, I think Wales will give her a proper hometown heroes welcome, so that'll be really interesting. Also going to be interesting to see where they go in terms of the card. I need to get back into that NXT UK scene. I haven't been keeping much up to date with it recently. I think the New York taping episodes really put me off, because I tried to just watch it for those couple of weeks, and it just really seemed like they weren't taking it seriously. Like, the production values weren't up, the commentary was really lazy, which is something that I was really surprised by because of how much I love Nigel McGuinness. So it was really, really disheartening and strange that these New York episodes were so lazy and not well done, and it really put me off. But with the takeover coming up, I'm going to have to get back into it to see what's the card's going to shape up to be like. Who is Walter's contender going to be? Is it going to be Pete Dunne or Jordan Devlin? Maybe even someone different like a Travis Banks or something like that. and I'm really looking forward to it. But like I say, I wish that they'd done one sooner. I do feel like the interest in NXT UK has waned quite a bit. I mean, it was sort of the hot thing going to start with for a little bit, and especially around Blackpool, the buzz for it was huge. But I hardly ever hear people talking about it anymore. And I can't remember the last time I heard someone say, "Oh, this incredible thing happened on NXT UK. You really got to watch this," or "They had this outstanding match." And I think they've just robbed it a little bit of its special feeling, especially by burying something like Walter and Pete Dunne, their rematch, burying it just in the TV tapings and just having it happen there, by giving away their championship match, the original one, the normal NXT OG brand takeover. Giving it to the Americans, it just makes it feel like, why should I get invested in this? Because any big match, you're just going to go and have it on actual takeover rather than giving us them. So I'm excited. But I also just hope that's the start of a sort of regular schedule of takeovers, because I don't think that it's good leaving it that long between them, because you need to get the ball rolling on it. And especially with AEW, All Out is going to be a huge event. Double or Nothing was an absolute barn burner of a success. I had a mixed experience with it, but a lot of people really, really enjoyed it. And there's so much, even more hype for AEW than there was before. I mean, my AEW review did really, really well and has done better than probably any of the other videos that I've uploaded, and it just shows that there's that hunger and excitement for AEW. So All Out being a thing, going back to Chicago, the place that spawned All In, it's going to be a hot crowd. There's going to be fans that are already dedicated. AEW are going to put on the best show that they can, and obviously I haven't seen it myself because I can't, but I've got my indie correspondent Glenn who tells me these things, and apparently the logo or the advertisement for All Out is sort of with that white background with the black text, and sort of basically CM Punk best in the world-ish type logo. And if that is a tease, which it basically is, because if they're not getting Punk, then that is some WWE level teasing of the fans, just because they know that they like Punk. I guess maybe it might be like the Chicago flag, because I think that's why Punk had that design, right? It's the Chicago flag. So maybe, okay, it's not that. Maybe it's not teasing as much, but they know that people are going to think CM Punk. They know what people think. If Punk was to come back, which I'm not sure of, and I probably, it drops further and further each time he doesn't come back. And if he doesn't at All Out, I don't think we're ever getting it. I really don't. If he doesn't take the chance now to join All Elite and come back in Chicago, etc., if this new scene and the buzz around it in Double or Nothing didn't reignite his passion for wrestling, then I don't think anything will. And if he does, then it's going to be really hard for either of those other two brands to compete, especially NXT UK, because it's not got the buzz or the hype that NXT has, and it, I think even like a takeover would struggle to compete with AEW because of how dedicated to it its fans already are. Even I've heard a few people say that they prefer Double or Nothing to Takeover 25, and I think people would definitely end up preferring All Out to the UK takeover, especially at least they don't have to choose. Triple H talked about. I saw an interview where Triple H was talking about the fact that NXT UK will be on at 3 p.m. Eastern, which is earlier than what All Elite will be on, and he said that they're going to set the standard, and then people across the pond are going to have to follow that. And my first thought and was just, have you not just placed AEW as the main event and put yourself as the undercard. Like, you're the show starter now. You're not the headliner, basically. You've put yourself earlier on in the day so people can watch you, and then later on in the main event go watch All Elite. And I just think they're leaving themselves open to get criticised and shit upon, basically. But like I said, I'm looking forward to seeing the card coming together and what they do. I will most definitely be watching it, and I am really excited and gutted that I can't go. I'm glad that they finally announced it, but I wish that it had been a bit sooner, and I hope they don't wait as long between that and the next one. What are your thoughts on NXT UK TakeOver Cardiff? What do you think the card will be? What would you want it to be? Do you think All Out will be better, or even do you think NJPW will beat them both? Let me know your comments down below and we'll have a little bit of a chat about it. So one of the most talked about things last week was the Talk is Jericho Jon Moxley interview, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail because frankly, if you're interested, you should just go and listen to it, because it was a incredibly entertaining, insightful, and maybe somewhat saddening podcast, but I really enjoyed it and it was a great interview. But I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that he said. It just makes me sad, really. I like Dean Ambrose. I probably like him the most out of any of the Shield members. I just always thought that there was something really intriguing about him when he first joined the Shield. It was probably one of my first sort of exposures to see ZW, when my friends were telling me to go check that stuff out and checking out old Moxley promos and stuff, and it really got me into him, and I really thought he was a great character that I really got behind. And it helps that when Seth Rollins was going through his heel period, I was really, really worked by that. And I really hated that Seth Rollins character of the authority guy and it just being the chicken shit heel. And because of that, I liked Roman and Dean more, and obviously I definitely liked Dean more than I liked Roman. But it's just sad to know that that entire stint in the WWE was not a nice experience for him, and he talks about a lot about the main problem that he really spoke about, other than complaining about having to talk about Roman's leukemia right after it had happened, because he voiced some displeasure with that, which, you know, that goes without saying. That's unfortunate, and if he hadn't have been comfortable with it, which he wasn't, they shouldn't have made him do it. And but that was one of those things at the time that people didn't think was a great move anyway. But he was speaking about the most common thing that he had to struggle with was creative, and trying to overcome the creative hurdles that he felt were being placed in front of him, and talking about trying to get promos changed and rewrite them, and sort of put his foot down and try and get the creative to go in the direction that he wanted for his character. And he talks about trying to get things changed, like carrying a little red wagon full of weapons down to the ring when he was facing Brock, and having to call someone a pooper scooper, eating a sandwich on the way to the ring, etc, etc. He talks about those things and talks about trying to get them changed and go backwards and forwards with writers, trying to get drafts in before Vince could see them, Vince changing them round. And one of the things that struck me the most was when he talked about the pooper scooper line, saying that he changed it with the writers, they went back and forth, they sent it off, and when it come back, the notes said Dean needs to understand why he's insulting the audience, because he mentioned that he wasn't happy with just running them down, calling them smelly and disgusting like he was doing in his heel run. He said Dean needs to understand why he's insulting the audience. He needs to stop rewriting his promos and read them verbatim. And it was just really a disheartening sort of thing, because I'm a loyal WWE fan. It's all I've ever watched. It's what got me into wrestling, and I'd try my best at every opportunity to defend them and come up with pro arguments for them, and especially against the likes of someone like my friend, my indie correspondent Glenn, who's been pushed too far the other way by bits and bobs over the years, like the treatment of Punk and just countless other things, his favourite wrestlers being booked a certain way, etc. Feeling like he's being pushed that far, he will run down Vince, run down the company, and he's perfectly entitled to. I enjoy having the debate with you, to be honest, Glenn, but it's also becoming harder and harder to come up with arguments as to why they're not doing things wrong, why they're not stifling creativity. Moxley talks about when he was injured, just realising that he didn't love wrestling anymore, and that's something that you heard from Punk as well, of losing his love of wrestling. It's just sad to know that someone who really, really loves what he does, and he's definitely, as much as people like to say he's a wrestler, I would say different. I would say that he's an artist. He's way more of an actor than I think even he would give himself credit for, because he talks about pacing backwards and forwards in the middle of the night, coming up with promos and adding this bit and that bit to the match and thinking about different angles, cutting promos on himself in the mirror, and that's the things that he used to do. And then when he was injured, he said that he didn't anymore, and it's getting harder and harder to come up with reasons why it's not their fault or it's not Vince's fault, because I always try. I hate this the Vince should just retire rhetoric, and like, oh, WWE is going to be so much better when Vince dies, because frankly I just don't think that you should be wishing death on anyone, especially not someone like Vince, who, yeah, okay, he might not be making the best decisions for the WWE, but I don't think he's done anything that really deserves or warrants death wishes. And even saying that he should just step down is like, yeah, okay, I understand where people's coming from, but you try stepping down from your company after you've been running it for so long. He probably just cares. He cares a bit too much, and he wants to micromanage things, but it's also just not working for them, and it's killing people's love for wrestling, the fans and the wrestlers. And it was a bit of a gut punch, to be honest, to hear him talk about actually feeling like he was legit depressed and just not wanting to come back, and saying that he'd go and watch live music shows and he'd watch the artists on stage and they would change a lyric here and a lyric there, and add an extra note in a riff here and change the melody there, and they were just having fun with the song and letting the creativity flow through them. And he realised that he hadn't felt like that for a long time, and it was just a real gut punch. So it makes me wonder how many more people in the WWE feel like that. People like the Revival and people like Sasha, people like the Club. It's obvious how Ty Dillinger must have felt, Ryder and Hawkins, just any number of people that just haven't been used correctly or in a long time. And it just makes me, basically, when it comes down to it, I enjoy watching people do stuff that they enjoy. And if it doesn't matter how crap something is, look at the 24/7 title, alright? Everyone's complaining about that. No one wants to admit that it's good, but it is. Wrestling should be funny sometimes. And you go watch any number of these skits that Carmella and Truth are doing together, and they love it. They're having such a good time with it, and that makes it relatable and you can connect to it, and I like watching it. It doesn't matter that it's crap, because they love it and they're having fun with it. So knowing that Moxley was coming out and bored every week, and people were picking up on that, and that actually made people turn against him towards the end of his run, it's just a saddening thought. And it's just getting, like I said, it's getting harder and harder to come up with those counter arguments when you're having a debate about it. And I just hope that things change a little bit soon, and I hope that they start realising that they need to have a back and forth with the talent and let them foster their own characters, because it's a bit mad to tell someone this is who you are. So yeah, it was a really, really intriguing interview, and although I've brought up a lot of the stuff, I nowhere near brought up all of the things that he did. And one of the things that I really liked about it is I never felt like it was a burial, even though they joked at the beginning, like, right, all that nice stuff's out the way, like, next 2 hours. I never felt like it was a full burial. I never felt like he said anything unjustified or lying. I feel like it was really, really concise and clear examples and arguments that he had, that he could always back up what point he was making. So that, at least, I found a positive thing, that he didn't want to just bury them. Don't get me wrong, he did not go easy on WWE, but he definitely didn't say anything that I think was unjustified or unfair, and he definitely didn't make himself look bitter. If anything, he made himself look like he was just, he got a whole new sense of, oh, technology, I hate you. If my keyboard disconnects during these recordings, then it just cuts my camera off completely, and that's just what happened to me during my NXT TakeOver 25 review, and it also just happened to me, so sorry about that, because I just can't edit them out. I'm no good at editing, I don't know how to. But I was wrapping it up anyway, and all I wanted to say was basically, good luck to Dean Ambrose in the future. I hope that he can keep that passion for wrestling that he seems to have found again alive, and I hope that there's not too many people that feel the same way, and if they do, I hope things change for them quick. The last topic that I've got today is concerning NXT TakeOver 25, so if you're listening to this and you haven't watched the show, spoiler alert, I am going to be talking about the results of the main event. So if you don't want to hear about it, if you're not watched yet, get the hell out of here. I'll see you in another video or at the end of the video, because this is the last topic. But like I said, spoiler alert in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What's next for Johnny Gargano? Now, Johnny lost his championship at NXT TakeOver 25, and it's going to be interesting to see where they go from here. He was briefly called up to the main roster with Tommaso Ciampa before Ciampa got injured, and many people now think he'll probably be on his way up there again. I would personally like to see him stay down in NXT, because that's the thing that I watch on a regular basis. It's the place where I know that he's going to be booked well, that he's going to be safe, that he's got a spot. And it'd be really sad to see him go, because frankly I don't watch main roster stuff. I keep up to date with it, but I still won't get a chance to see him as much, and I'd like to see him stay in NXT. A lot of people have said that they will keep him in NXT till Ciampa can come back. I'm not sure how that will work though, because it seems like he's going to be out for a long time, and they might not want to keep Johnny down there that long. I just think that I'd like to see him go back after that championship, go on the chase again. We all love Johnny wrestling when he's on the chase for the title. The only problem is that I don't know about anyone else, but that Adam Cole performance at TakeOver was a bit of a face turn for me. They went the complete opposite way to what I would have gone myself. It worked out really, really well. The fact that Strong and the other Undisputed Era members lost and then Adam Cole won makes it so that Adam Cole has been perfectly justified in all the things that he's been saying. All the trash talk that he's done, he's backed it up, which Johnny didn't. You know, Johnny's... You can stand there and be like, I won 2 falls and you only won 1. All you want, Johnny. But at the end of the day, you didn't get it done. There was no cheating, unless you count the little tiny thing of pretending to summon down the Undisputed Era, which Johnny was stupid enough to get distracted by. Other than that, it was a clean as a whistle win, and it really got me behind Adam Cole. But it'll be interesting. I really want to see Johnny chase him more. I would like to see, I think, this dripping in gold storyline for the Undisputed Era. Now, it could easily go a couple of ways from here with Undisputed Era, in terms of they could still go along the breakup storyline. Roderick Strong could just get kicked out. Cole could just leave and tell them he doesn't need them anymore. But if they want to go along the united front, then you don't have too many tag teams in NXT, pretty much only the ones that you had in the Fatal 4-Way. So it's really only those teams that can feud. I don't know if Birch and Lorcan are a full official tag team that's always in NXT, especially with Birch being on UK and Lorcan being on 205 Live. So you're pretty much only left with the Undisputed Era, Forgotten Sons and Street Profits. So they'll be wrapped up in a feud. Undisputed Era will be chasing the titles. Roderick Strong, I would like to see in a feud with the Velveteen Dream for that NXT NA Championship. And if they were going to do that, it'd be pretty cool to see Johnny, the Velveteen Dream, and Matt Riddle team up as a three-man team to take on the Undisputed Era. I think that'd be a really, really cool, somewhat mismatched team that could actually work really well, and then it'd be a fairly cool War Games match, etc. There's quite a few ways that you could go with that, and you've got, if Strong was to beat the Velveteen Dream for that NXT North American Championship, Riddle and Strong and the Undisputed Era have got unfinished business. Velveteen Dream, he could be going back after the North American Championship and keeping his eye on the NXT Championship. Johnny can be chasing the title. It'd be just, I think that you could get some pretty decent storylines out of that. So that's probably where I would go with Johnny next, is team him up with the Velveteen Dream and Matt Riddle and have them battle the Undisputed Era over the next few months until War Games, and then I'd probably have them in that War Games match that they will probably end up having. So yeah, those are my thoughts on what next for Johnny Gargano. What are yours? What would you do with him next? What do you think they'll do with him next? Do you think he's going to get called up to the main roster? And if he does, where would you want to see him go on the main roster? Personally, if he got called up, like I said, I don't watch main roster, but I think he'd be a better suit on SmackDown. Put him in a feud against Finn Balor for the Intercontinental Championship. That wouldn't be too bad. Eventually, some sort of deal with Kofi would also be fairly interesting. So yeah, if he was to get called up, where would you go with him? If he gets kept in NXT, where would you go with him? Let me know on what you think is next for Johnny Gargano. So with that, we've come to the end of our time together, my friends, and I hope that you've enjoyed it as much as I have, because it's been a blast for me. Remember, these Monday Mix-Up episodes are for you. If you've got any thoughts on a wrestling topic from this week and you want me to talk about it next week, drop it in the comments down below, any topics or questions. And if you want to let me know what you thought on any of the topics from today's episode, drop them down in the comments below. If you want to stay up to date with WITD, remember to click that subscribe button and the notify bell, and don't leave yourself out in the cold. Right guys, I'm off, and you should have a good one.